Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead of you. Today, I have for you my Double Gameweek 33 transfer plans, accompanied by my Double Gameweek 32 review, or at least what has followed from it so far. In transfer plans, we should look at, of course, the potential transfers I'm making, but also the impact it has on a potential bench boost and how aggressive I am looking to be with that chip in play and how aggressive I am looking to be when it comes to maximizing the number of doublers in my team, especially because free hit 34 strategy. That is what we have to look forward to today. I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video if you enjoy, and without anything else needing to be said, let's hop into it. Right, we are going to start with something a little bit different this game week, because I think that this was my worst game week of the season. Not so much in terms of outcome, because we were only on a 10 to 13k red arrow, but more so due to the quality of my decisions, how early I've gone on some of them, and how that's interacted with my content. One thing, as an example, is that I said that Rodgers was a minutes risk, and I thought he was a minutes risk for the entirety of the week. However, come Saturday morning / late Friday night, I had the urge to start Rodgers a little bit more than I did prior, and I almost felt that I couldn't, because I'd said in my content I wasn't going to. And then when I'd already bought Savinho, and at 10:58 or something, I heard he had a late fitness test, I felt like I couldn't then go and swap Rodgers in. Now, I could have done, but I felt like I couldn't. And that, again, is a mistake on my part. So going forward, I'm going to say that in my team selection, I'm 90% locked. But if something happens in the last 10 minutes of the deadline, and I think it will benefit my team, irrespective of what I had said before, if my mind changes, I am going to switch it. The second thing is that I felt like I went a little bit early on decisions this week where I wasn't entirely sure. And I'm not talking about the triple captain. We'll come on to that later, but I'm cool with that. For example, like Neco Williams or benching order, things like that. I felt like I should have given myself more time and just said, I'm a bit uncertain on Friday, as opposed to forcing myself to find something to make a decision. And again, that's a mistake on my part. And I think that is a switch I'll make in the future. So I was just letting you know that. And now we can hop into the review. As per usual, not much to talk about in this section, especially since Cell Supremacy has left the team and I no longer have Robert Sanchez for his interesting performances. Raya, in general, had pretty decent prospects to get a clean sheet, considering that Brentford didn't have too many chances. When you looked at it in 30, 40, 50 minutes, you thought, okay, there's a good chance of it here, especially when they scored that first goal. But again, Wissa pops up with the goal, as he has done so often this season, and it ends on a 2-pointer. Even if I had forgot to switch Raya back in, just like last week, it wouldn't have mattered, because both him and Areola finished on 2. Not too much to be said here. Most of us own him. Unless you had Martinez, you weren't probably going to start anyone over him, maybe Verbruggen. But in that case, you probably would be bench boosting. And yeah, he's good for the double, right? The best expected minutes of any Arsenal player. And decent fixtures. I don't think they're great, but they're decent. And then he provides some utility down the line, including in Gameweek 38. So he's not going anywhere. And now we can move on to the defense. Moving on to the defenders, which is far more interesting. We will start with a success. We will start with a couple of successes. One, benching Oscar Gvardiol. I was quite adamant I was going to do that all week. I was quite adamant that Palace were going to score. They did, and they made it pretty easy for me in the sense that they did it early on, so I wasn't having to look at a Oscar Gvardiol clean sheet on my bench or anything of the sort. And yeah, that was a success, so that was good. Another success, Ezri Konsa gets a clean sheet, and not only that, but after the game, he gets bumped up to 1 bonus point as well. Again, good stuff, right? And this was one I actually started. I changed my mind on his expected minutes throughout the week, but by Saturday I was quite confident he was going to start, and obviously he rewards me with the points. In terms of Munoz and Burn, a lot of people have Newcastle defense, so them conceding isn't really the end of the world, especially when I don't own Jacob Murphy. So that one extra clean sheet point that gets taken away, that's a positive. And then Munoz, again, a lot of people own him, not quite as much as the Newcastle defense, because obviously Trippier, Burn, Livramento, Pope, 4, whereas with Palace, it's kind of just Munoz or no one for most teams. Obviously, there's some Henderson, but not too many floating around. So the fact that he gets 0 points, I don't really care too much, right? Okay, yeah, would have been nice to get some points from him and a little game, but it would have been a little game and nothing less. Neco Williams, you know what? Everton had enough chances in the game, and I thought they played well enough from what I saw, whereby it was a fair result, right? I don't think Forest can complain massively that they lost the game. It was just the manner in which you lose the clean sheet. I mean, 94th minute, Murillo loses the ball, and you know what, that happens. But for the defender not to intercept it afterwards, I didn't think the pass was going particularly quick, and like it was in such a good path for him to block it. So how that goes under / through him, I don't know, but you know it happens, and Neco Williams ends up with a 2-pointer, and it's not great going into Sunday, but thankfully there wasn't too much damage done to my rank on Sunday. And now let's move on to the midfield. In terms of the transfer of Neco Williams, I knew that one of the big reasons I did this was the utility down the line. So not getting returns early on is okay, as long as down the line it makes it worth it. And who knows, away at Spurs, I did think that like they are one of the worst teams in the league at the moment, and Spurs really are, right? Look at their recent form. They obviously have a lot of attacking talent, though, and given the way they played, there's always a goal on offer for them. I hope, though, especially with Neco Williams' attacking threat, that we kind of we get some points from either that or the clean sheet and returns on the bench boost. Moving on to the midfield, we will start with the big talking point, and that is the transfer of Savinho for Phil Foden, which is looking worse and worse by the minute. Saturday morning, he's meant to start. I think everyone kind of expected him to start. Great. I see a message on my phone about 10:58. Oh, he's having a fitness test, and then he fails it and ends up on the bench. When I heard that he wasn't starting, I was like, okay, if he fails a fitness test, he just won't be in the squad. So, like, not the end of the world. At that point, like I said anyway, I was more bullish on Rodgers in minutes, so I was actually quite happy about it. Then I see him on the bench, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's not great or ideal, but it is what it is. And by the time it gets like 5-2 in the 70th, there's no reason to bring on someone who failed a fitness test on, but he brought him on in the 80th minute. But is what it is. Only 5 points lost in comparison to Rodgers. In a week like this, it would be very much preferable. It would certainly be preferable to have those, but not to be, and that's all good. Salah and Salah both putting up assists. Salah could have had more. He had that missed chance in the first half. That was a big one. There were a couple like moments in the second half where I thought a little bit more quality and he would have been in, but you know it wasn't to be. And at least like he gets me some gain. If he went as I think it was very harsh. I mean, for him not to end up with any bonus points, and not just that, but obviously the disallowed goal, which was so close, and he probably didn't need to go early. And at that point, if it's 3-0, things could go ugly for City there, but just wasn't meant to be. Salah, he's owned by I think his effective ownership was plus 100%. It was like 104/107. So regardless of what he did, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But it was nice that it was on the lower side. Every little helps. And then Anthony Gordon, I was not expecting him to rock up. He has scored a 1-pointer, but I expect him to be on the bench again for Wednesday. An unnecessary risk to take for the run-in, especially with Harvey Barnes being in such good form. And how can you drop him after a brace and a goal versus Leicester, right? And all he's done in recent weeks. So yeah, I don't think that will end up hurting me too much. It was more so just the Savinho thing, the fact that I've lost a transfer there and the Rodgers points. But you know, that happened, and now we can move on to the main talking point. And now we talk about the triple captain. I'm quite thankful that the deficit is only 4 points between Mateta and Isak, because when your triple captain striker gets taken off at 1:30 on Saturday, and then you know that Isak's at home and everyone's got him like captain or triple captain for the 4:30 kickoff, to only walk away with a 4-point deficit and the fact that they scored 4. You know what? It's okay. He didn't have too much outside of that chance which Bayern gave to him, but then saved well. The ball just kind of seemed to elude him in the box, and for example, the Murphy cutback, it falls to Barnes, and a couple other instances, right? So that was definitely lucky, and that was good. What some would deem to be unlucky is Mateta's substitution. I think it's very difficult for me to account for the fact that he was going to lose as many duels as he did in the first half, and as a result, he was going to get taken off. Not just that, but also the momentum of how the game was going, and Glasgow wasn't even going to give him 10 minutes to sort himself out. The pullback for Eze easily could have been Mateta's. In fact, when Sarr initially got the ball, and I think I'm not alone in this, many people thought it would have been Mateta's, and it just seemed like he wasn't the one on the end of the chances. Sarr had that pullback. Eze had the goal disallowed. There was another couple of moves where it could have nearly been him, almost somewhat similar to Isak, but it wasn't to be. And going into the game on Wednesday, given it's only a 4-point deficit, I'm okay with it, right? Like, not obviously what I would have hoped for, but is what it is. And we can reassess after Wednesday. Yeah, and that's just Isak and Mateta covered. If you triple captain Isak and you're on 15 points from him, well done to you. And equally, if you went for Harvey Barnes' selection, or even like a Sarr or an Eze, Hormouche been one of the better buys on the wildcard. 9-point gain, or 6-point gain over Salah in the initial week, game week 30, due to the captaincy, blank last week. not the biggest deal, and then another goal this week. So he's looking good for 33 and beyond. And yep, that is the team. Obviously, the rank has just been taking a beating since Gameweek 24 for about 2.5 months now. I haven't come to a particularly good game week. Yeah, that can happen. So it is what it is. Hopefully the game on Wednesday goes well, and then we pick up some momentum and keep going for the end of the season. Still a decent rank, I think, with one game in the triple captain and the bench boost and free hit in the back pocket. So yeah, we'll see what comes of it. And yeah, if you had a great week, congratulations. Transfer plans. Now, for fairly obvious reasons, the player that I would really like to bring in for this double gaming, as things stands, is Bukayo Saka. A decent double in 33. I'm free hitting 34. And then with the fixture he has in 38 and a couple of decent ones, well, Bournemouth at home I think is decent in 35, 36 and 37, not so much. But a player like him, so special, so talented, can turn it on at any time. And with his routes to points on top of his quality, and I guess they go hand in hand, I'll have a high floor asset at a minimum, right? And it would be a huge risk to go without him. So that is the most likely transfer. And given what I did in Game Week 32, I only have one. There's slightly less scope for me to move around and do something elaborate. However, on the assumption that I just do that, it would mean that both Savinho has to stay in the side, which we'll come on to, and Bruyne would be part of my bench boost, which we'll also come on to. Starting with Savinho, if he gets minutes, then yeah, it's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. I think having his type of profile against both Aston Villa and Everton is very useful. And honestly, I think he should play both games from a footballing standpoint. But if it's not looking like that's the case, and the fitness issue is a bigger one than we know at the moment, Kevin De Bruyne is looking like quite an attractive option. The big thing is that he himself has said this is the first time he's playing without pain. This is his time, I think, with maybe Foden being out for a little while, to kind of have that right 8 spot to himself. Of course, a senior figure in that side as well. They have so much respect for him in that side. He has such a great relationship with Pep. And of course, he's leaving as well. So it's just such a nice way for him to kind of go out. I feel like have this run at the back end of the season, make sure they qualify for the UCL, get some goals and assists, and go off on a high note when it was very much looking like that wouldn't be the case. But that would make things harder in terms of the budget for Bukayo Saka. And if I was to have him and Saka, it would mean that I would have to take a hit, which isn't the most attractive thing. I therefore have to consider, is it worth taking a hit for a double game week asset? And my thinking is more so yes than it was this week, just because I'm free hitting in 34, so that the implications of that aren't too big, right? Like, it's not like there's extra fiction for these assets down the line. I'm not hitting assets out who have a potential double in 36, for example, like Anthony Gordon or Dan Burn. So I am more inclined to take a hit. Am I okay to take hits for, let's say, someone like De Bruyne, knowing that I wouldn't be able to get a third Villa asset unless I go for a defender? Less so. That's another thing to consider. And how do I feel about Rashford in general, knowing that he's the penalty taker for Aston Villa, knowing that he could have a double for 36, knowing that stylistically these two games are pretty good for him in 33, and the fact that I'd be avoiding him. And this is all on the assumption, right, that like I want De Bruyne, but even so, like I don't really have any midfield spots left. Like I've already got Rodgers, Salah's not going anywhere, Sar's not going anywhere, and then between Saka and Savinho, there's no space for Marcus Rashford at the moment, right? So again, what do I do about that? And then in terms of the defense, like I mentioned, Dan Burn, do I go to a Kilman who has Southampton at home in 33, but not just that, potential double in 36 for a hit, and will it pay itself off? Well, if I think that Newcastle concede and West Ham could have an extra game down the line, then maybe it's worth it. Do I go for someone like a Jakob Kiwior and bet on his expected minutes, etc., right? There are so many routes available to myself with the option to take 1, 2, or even 3 transfers if I'm feeling really bullish on a certain player or a certain strategy, right? Obviously not ideal. I'd much prefer to have all 3 transfers and for my team to be in a better state. But following the selections earlier on, we are in this position now, right? And again, we'll see what comes on Wednesday and what happens there, because obviously Arsenal still have to go to Madrid and I still have to see what comes from my Palace boys against Newcastle. And the current bench boost, just for reference, is Areola, Isak, Burn, and Neco, because Isak doesn't start over any of the doubles for me, and nor does he start over Mohamed Salah. So he's at, and having him and Areola when Areola's at home to Southampton on bench boost, honestly, is absolutely wonderful, and I'm really happy about that. Neco, I kind of knew it wouldn't be great. Wouldn't be too bad, but it wouldn't be great. But I was okay with that for the utility again down the line. I really did want Burn to be at a minimum Milenkovic, but ideally Kilman as well. But that's harder to justify with the need for Bukayo Saka, and only one free transfer. So we shall see what transpires. Those are my early transfer plans, and I shall have an update on Wednesday. And that is all she wrote for this video, ladies and gentlemen. The next time I see you shall be on Wednesday for everything you need. And then on Thursday, we will have the team selection and a final review of what has transpired in a very important double game week. I shall see you then, and I look forward to it. And in the meantime, go well. Goodbye.